I'd like to go over something I used to do consistently when I first started painting watercolor landscapes, but now that I have a touch of experience under my belt, I can see that it wasn't only unnecessary, it was actually holding me back from getting the results I was after. In this video, I'm going to show you a common watercolor technique I had been using incorrectly. I'll talk about when you should actually use this technique, and I'll go over two simple solutions so you don't make the same mistake as me. So, what was I doing wrong? Well, I was starting out every landscape painting with a layer of blue over the entire page. This, of course, was my sky. I would wait for this layer to dry, then come in with a second color for the earth. That doesn't sound so bad, does it? Well, here's the problem. By covering my whole paper with blue, I was throwing down a base layer of color that would alter all future layers. So, the beautiful colors I had carefully and thoughtfully chosen for my earth, well, they were now modified thanks to an underlying layer of blue. While I don't believe there's a wrong way to create art, I do think we need to be intentional with our decisions and understand when to use different techniques. Do you see the difference here? I'm not saying one is better or worse, but the colors are quite different despite only using cerulean blue and Terre Verte on both paintings. Now I'm going to show you three different colors that really drive this point home. Take note of how different the modified left looks from the right. There's nothing wrong with going over the blue with a second color. In fact, glazing is an extremely common practice with watercolor painting, if your intention is to alter these colors. Glazing should be used when you want to modify the previous layers or enhance them. Another reason you might lay down a layer of color beforehand would be if you're underpainting. Some more advanced artists will add a layer or two of color underneath. The colors they use are chosen with specific intention in an effort to add dimension to their artwork. And I'd love to tell you that I was simply adding an underwash of blue, but I think we know that wasn't the case. This was eye-opening for me when I took the time to compare these colors side by side. Especially this top color, Perylene green. I find it interesting how much the richness was lost on the example on the left. I suppose this is why some artists go through extensive swatching to see precisely how paints will look when mixed or layered with other paints. Here's something else I was missing out on with my previous method. I love leaving some of the paper untouched, letting the white show through, like the painting on the bottom, but that isn't likely to happen when I'm coating the whole paper from the get-go, like the top example. I've noticed with my early paintings that not only does this alter the colors, it can also make your painting look overworked. It can be extremely difficult to keep a light, airy feeling if you're fighting with an unnecessary and unwanted layer of color. Now, let's go over two easy fixes. So first, I'm going to start with a shade of blue for the sky like before, but this time I'll be fading the color away as I approach the horizon. The color will be more saturated at the top and gradually become lighter as I move down the page, eventually fading out to nothing but water. I'm going to let this dry as we work on the second one. This time I'm going to be wetting my entire page with a light layer of water. I'm coming in with my blue, covering about half of the page. Next, I'll bring in my green and let the earth meet the sky with this wet on wet method. The colors will blend together some just at the horizon, but I'm not going to be overlapping my colors by painting green over blue. If you've worked with acrylics, then you know that painting over previous layers once dry isn't really an issue because the paints are generally opaque, but watercolors are a different story. If you create a blend of watercolor paints, test it out on a blank sheet of paper, and absolutely love that color, you can't expect it to look the same when you apply it over another color. Having some experience with acrylics, but no experience with watercolors, this didn't occur to me, and I continued to paint in this manner for far too long, throwing down one layer after another with disregard for the colors underneath. The first page is dry now, so let's go back and finish. I guess I could have started my fading up a bit higher, but that's all right. It's just an example. Now, when I add my green, I'm getting the true color I chose because this portion of the paper doesn't have an underlayer of blue. And when I build up the colors of the ground, it will be with intent. Of course, these two methods work regardless of color or ground structure, as long as we plan accordingly. As we end this video, let's take a look at two finished landscapes. On the left, I use the fade-out method, taking into consideration the slope. On the right, I've used wet on wet, letting the mountain meet the sky. You can see the light blurring right on the horizon line. I'd love to hear in the comments, have you ever made this watercolor mistake? If you have, that's all right. Mistakes help us learn and become better, more intentional artists. Thanks so much for watching.